I'm always ready.
Word.
Oh yes, the time has come! The time of fate and curses!
Their life ends here!
Out of my way!
Die! Die! Die!
Run them through!
This will hurt!
You don't seem to like my curses! Maybe you like my jokes better? Let's strike from the shadows. Let's hear you cry!
Let the attack commence! You should have run!
The time for laughter has passed. It's the hour of hunting and chaos. Let's strike from the shadows. Die!
May I see your entrails, please? Strike!
Out of my way!
Burn! Slice! Behead! Yes! Don't hold back!
Enough! Time for masks is over. You risk challenging and help in the thirst for adventures. I remember your answer. The world remembers it too. Your answer, your heart, your essence. Now, cursed king, I'm taking this part of your soul, as I took away their... Let us continue. We both wear a crown. But what do you want? A meager patch of land if you doubt... I'm curious what you think of me, cursed king. Do you see me as a villain? Or some chosen? In truth, well, everyone can conceive of the truth. Being an eldest means being one of the many strings that hold the world in place. Being an eldest means being such a vast and self-sufficient value that one's equals become... Good. You can play with words.
I'm superior!
What's next? How will you end this story? Listen, I know. Did I tell you I don't like dying? Well, I don't. Perhaps we should stop this pointless exercise and speak seriously? So be it. This performance has run its course. It would be unwise to continue. Besides, I have no love of dying, returning to life. My fellow eldest are very good at playing especially intricate pranks at that exact moment. You were cursed by my will.
Now that the eldest and other spiteful beings wouldn't be bothering us, the king returned to his subjects and celebrated the victory and the end of the kingdom's miseries with great fanfare. Everything gradually returned to normal, including our exciting lives. Not always peaceful, but also not troubled by invasions from another world. And little by little, our heroes and the common folk began to forget the sorrows of the past. Under the wise leadership of the king, the stolen lands became a true country. There was still much to be done, of course, and some of it will need to be finished by our heroes' descendants. But there are no longer cut purses on every corner, and the peasants aren't afraid some new self-proclaimed chief will show up and strong-arm himself into power. The feud between Brevois North and South, which had been smoldering for ages, finally sparked the fires of civil war. Our troops lent aid to the forces of House Sertova, suffering terrible losses as they took the brunt of the damage from the Sword Lord's forces. The rebellion was soon crushed, and Jumanji Eldori was beheaded in Restov's central square. And for a long time, any hope of an independent Rostland died with her. The Tiger Lords never fully recovered from the damage Armont did to the tribe. Lacking a strong leader and torn by infighting, the barbarians sank into a short but fierce internal war. Their lands were quickly appropriated by neighboring tribes, and the Tiger Lords were scattered across Numeria and the River Kingdoms, little more than pitiful remnants of a once great tribe. Pitax almost returned to its former state, a joyful city filled with beers of dubious quality and deals of questionable legality. The old trade houses lost the crown, but they retrieved the property Iravetti had taken from them. Soon, Pitax became almost like a second capital in the kingdom, a thriving city through which rivers of money from across the region ran. Unfortunately, we get much less of this money than we would like. Governor Liachenza turned out to be helpless against widespread embezzlement. Self-administration turned the Academy of the Arts into a strange place. The court sycophants were quickly ousted. It turned out they weren't welcome when there wasn't someone like Iravetti constantly ordering odes to themselves. In their place came a motley, unpredictable crowd. Eccentrics, fashionable authors of popular prints and cheap novels, charlatans, scribblers with delusions of grandeur, as many as 3 feuding experimental theaters, and even a few truly unappreciated geniuses. The Academy is not only highly esteemed, there's no place like it, even in Absalom. Trolls and kobolds, 2 of the most savage native peoples living in the Gnarl Marches, were completely exterminated in the region. The forest paths became much safer, and the peasants' cattle have stopped going missing. After enduring so many storms and troubles, Varnhold eventually turned into a real city. Daring settlers decided to conquer the vast, wild expanses of Dunsword, and despite all odds, they succeeded. The modest colony that almost vanished at the hands of an ancient lich turned everything around to become a thriving city with lively river trading. Agay, the Spriggan leader, learned a valuable lesson after surviving his meeting with the king and even regaining his tribe's home. Don't try to occupy seemingly empty settlements anymore. Instead, the Spriggans settled across Dunsworth's wild borderlands and proclaimed it as their domain. Keeping the peace in a situation like that seems like the stuff of dreams, as evidenced by the occasional lost patrols and stolen cattle. After the kobolds and mites disappeared, the empty caves beneath the old sycamore quickly became home to all kinds of disgusting critters. Giant centipedes being the most innocent and pleasant of them. Attempts have been made to clear out the caves, but it never takes long for something to take up residence again. In the end, the decision was made to block the entrances and burn the giant tree down, destroying the roots that held up the ceiling of the caves. Oleg's trading post continues to thrive, attracting even more travelers. Much to its owner's displeasure, a small town is springing up around it. Despite Oleg's grumbling, he and his wife are well regarded by everyone, and Svetlana was even elected town chief. Jod remained loyal to the king to the end of his days, healing the sick and generously sharing his austere wisdom with anyone who wished to hear it, and some who didn't. Having fulfilled his duty to the ruler, Erastil's priest peacefully departed this world, surrounded by friends and disciples. Having participated in Lamashtu's ritual, Olika gave birth to a strong and healthy baby. Sadly, the child grew into an unruly and violent adolescent. Having named a peer at just 10 years of age, the boy escaped to the Gnarl Marches, fleeing the rage of a mob that tore his mother to pieces instead. No one knows what happened to the lad, but legends of Lamashtu's child, who sometimes kills lost travelers and sometimes leads them to safety, are passed on by word of mouth throughout the area. Evindra was glad to see the Lantern King's plans turn to dust. She spent some time helping restore the kingdom after the calamity, then returned home to the First World. They say the rebellious spirit of her cousin Nyrissa awoke within her as well. Evindra is said to recount our story to the Fae, encouraging them to question the power and might of the eldest. After the victory, the storyteller abandoned his affairs and began spending a lot of time alone in contemplation. He eventually bid farewell to the king and left his lands. But I suspect the inhabitants of Golarion haven't heard the last of this mysterious traveler, for his own story is hardly finished. We never saw Amiri again. Perhaps she got lost somewhere in the First World, or maybe she found some other way back. Who knows? I doubt that stubborn barbarian would just vanish without a trace. As for the Six Bears, they returned to the mountains, out to the farthest, wildest backwoods they could find, and lived there ruled by their primal laws. Valerie stayed to serve the king, and to this day, she terrifies anyone who would dare break the law. Forceful and assertive, Valerie has finally shed her crowd of admirers and set herself upon the path of ultimate law, the same path so honored by the austere Hell Knights. Need I even mention that Valerie eventually decided to try on their black armor, only to find that it was a perfect fit? Harrim became famous, respected by dwarves throughout our kingdom as well as our neighbors, even as far as the Five Kings Mountains. He's often been asked to help out or teach others, and he's never denied anyone, despite his grumbling. Some people even listen to his preaching. Lucky for us, there's a lot less howling about the end of the world now, and more wise words of moderation and humility. Not all of his disciples turned to Grotus, but everyone took away something useful from his teachings. Ekin spent a few years in the Stolen Lands, and in that time won glory as the most rugged monster hunter in all the River Kingdoms. The ranger exterminated even the most harmless of the monsters around the capital, then moved on to other lands and new victories. They say the ruthless avenger and slayer of wild monsters made it as far as Katapesh. That's where his trail went cold. I'm afraid Ekin may have become the prey of one of his targets. Despite all the woes that befell the country, our king remains a strong leader. Many noble houses from neighboring lands wouldn't hesitate to be related to him, and they regularly send a variety of marriage proposals. As for myself, the author of this book, Lindsay, who never chose a pretty nickname, I stayed here, within my own book, to watch what happens in the kingdom and one day write this epilogue. I hope, oh honored reader, that you learned something important from this story, or at least were entertained by it. And now that it's concluded, I have only to set the final period and go silent forever.